welcome you to the Pasco Chamber January monthly luncheon, monthly meeting. You're more than free to feel like if you're hungry and this is lunchtime, go ahead and eat away. But hopefully soon we'll be back into the Red Lion again on our normal dates and times to see everybody in person. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. Number one, for not being our normal day. Generally, we have our meetings, our monthly meetings on the second Monday of the month. That didn't come to fruition. We had some scheduling snafus. I feel bad that we're having our meeting the same time as the Hispanic Chamber is doing their meeting. So I try to avoid stepping on the other meetings that may come up, but note that we'll be back to schedule in February and keep moving forward with that. And still appreciate everybody's, we have a good crowd today as well too. I want to thank Franklin County Sheriff Jim Raymond, who will be doing our keynote introduction, or do our keynote speech today. And also want to thank everyone that signed up, and in lieu of paying what the luncheon would be, still offering a sponsorship. I'm going to go to that slide right now so they get their due justice of being a sponsor. That helps us quite a bit as we go through this new format of meetings. So I appreciate the support, and the Pasco Chamber does as well too. Also want to take a moment and introduce some elected officials that are joining us here today. If you're in our networking portion, you heard from Franklin County Commissioners Brad Peck and Rocky Mullen. Thank you for joining us. I just let in Franklin County Prosecutor Sean Sant as well. So welcome, Sean. Looking to see if there's any other elected officials that are joining us today. Obviously, our speaker is Sheriff Jim Raymond too. So thank you all for participating. I do have a few chamber updates that I'd like to pass along before I hand it over to Jason Hogue. First off, this is an important time for the Pasco Chamber. You may have, if you get the Business Journal, you'll see that there's an article that was highlighting how chambers are working through COVID and the effects that COVID has had to our membership. And I'm happy to say that 2020 in terms of our membership was really strong. And we have a bulk of our renewing members, their invoicing goes out in January. So I think we were pretty fortunate to have had most of our renewals in before COVID took over our lives, and in 2020. So we're in the process now in January of the renewals, and those are coming back very strong. I feel very positive on the way that it's going. We do have a few of our members that renew on their anniversary month. So you might have some members that renewed in June, July, and August, and those were tracking extremely strong, especially faced with what they were in their businesses of staying in business and obviously having the opportunity to change their business program so that they could be participants, or so that they can still stay in business. So that's very strong. I feel very happy about that. And I think it shows just kind of the strength of the Pasco Chamber and how strong the membership is. So it really encourage your renewal if you can, and looking forward to the continued participation from so many businesses that actually are what makes the chamber run. So thank you so much. Also wanted to pass on some news. A couple of our area senators have reached out to us and wanted to pass along an opportunity to testify in the Olympia session in a Senate hearing regarding where we're at with COVID. There is a bill that's going to be considered in a Senate committee, and it's sponsored by I think Schessler, Brown. I think there's I think even it's a bipartisan effort. I think there's at least one or two Democrats that have signed on as a co-sponsor as well too, to move the state into phase 2 in the governor's new Healthy Washington program. So if that's something that you're interested in participating, the hearing is tomorrow at 8 a.m. Of course, the only way to participate is via Zoom. Later on in our program, I'll send a link out in chat. And if you have any interest of sharing your experiences and what your businesses is doing during COVID and what your thoughts are on this particular bill, it's Senate Bill 5114. I know that what they're looking for is a lot of engagement. And even though we're not able to go to Olympia, I think having this remote testimony is something that we need to take advantage of on this side of the state, and it saves you a long drive to and fro. So definitely a much safer way, and maybe you'll get more engagement in Olympia during these times. So I encourage you, if you have some interest, keep an eye out in the chat function for that information. And if you don't capture it, feel free to reach out to us at the Pasco Chamber and we can send you that information. So with that, that concludes my opening remarks, and I'd like to hand it over to Jason Hogue, our esteemed 2021 president of the Pasco Chamber of Commerce. Jason, it's your show now.
Thank you, Colin. I appreciate you and everyone for joining. My portion will be extremely short, thank goodness to all of you, is I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. Today, our keynote speaker is Sheriff Jim Raymond. Sheriff Raymond has been a resident of Pasco or Franklin County for over 40 years. He and his wife Donna moved from the small farming community of Deer Park, Washington in the late 70s to attend college. Sheriff Raymond began his law enforcement career with the city of Pasco in 1981. And the first 5 years of his career worked as a uniform patrol officer and also included time being a department instructor, reserve officer liaison, and a field training officer. In 1986, he was assigned to the Major Crimes Unit as a detective, primarily investigating crimes against persons cases. In the summer of '89, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant and was reassigned to the patrol division. From 1994 through 1999, he was assigned by the chiefs and sheriffs of Franklin and Benton counties to the Tri-City Metro Drug Task Force as the group supervisor. In 2000, he was promoted to the rank of captain and assumed the management and oversight of the Field Operations Division. In 2014, he was elected as sheriff and then re-elected in 2018. His term runs through next year, 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together virtually for Sheriff Jim Raymond.
Can you hear me?
We got you, sir.
All right, and there's the presentation up where people can see it, because I didn't quite get that one figured out.
We are looking to our IT professional, Colin Hastings.
There we go.
He does have it up.
That'll be helpful. All right, well, first, thanks for inviting me. It's sometimes nice to be able to do something out of the norm such as this. I know from looking that there's quite a few commissioners and a retired commissioner sitting out there in the audience. And so as we go along, please, any of the commissioners or Sean that wants to interject in any way to add to the presentation, please feel free to do so. So let's start with what the Franklin County Sheriff's Office is all about. We really break it down into 4 sections. Our law enforcement division is what you basically see your black and white patrol cars out in the community roaming around doing their thing. And then our detectives. Then we have a civil division. The civil division is Well, it's tasked with executing the orders of the court. The sheriff of your county is responsible for executing any orders of the court, such as evictions, arrest warrants, all those type of things. So we have a civil division, a captain that oversees that to make sure that we get that job done. Then, of course, we have the corrections, Franklin County Jail, which sits under the office of the sheriff right now. You see in other jurisdictions such as Benton County where the commissioners run the jail. In this county, as of today, the Franklin County Sheriff runs the jail. And we'll go over that a little bit more in depth when the time comes. Security, we are, of course, the Franklin County campus is in the jurisdiction of the sheriff. Excuse me, in the jurisdiction of the sheriff. So we are responsible for any of the security issues or criminal acts which occur on the county campus. Okay, let's see, where am I going to click to the next slide here? There you go. So we are an accredited agency. We have been on the sheriff's office side of our business here since about the early 2000s. We just currently this year became reaccredited, which basically means that we comply with all 21st century policing policies and practices. And then we're accredited by WASPIC in the state. We've been in existence since 1883 as a sheriff's office. It's referred to as a sheriff's office because we are elected. It's an elected position. If it's an appointed position, such as what's going on in King County, then you would refer to King County as a sheriff's department versus an office. So that's what divides that acronym, if you will, of office versus a department. Prior to becoming Franklin County, for you historical buffs, we were a part of Whitman County and transposed over into Franklin County through a series of things that took place. So our responsibility really lies within rural Franklin County, Mesa, the Connell area, all the North County area, and most of the West Pasco along the river areas of the county is our responsibility in law enforcement, for law enforcement purposes. For civil purposes, we are in and out of all the cities in this jurisdiction, serving search warrants, subpoenas, all those type of things, pretty much on a daily basis. In fact, most of the time our patrols spend the vast majority of their time doing paper services within the city limits in the counties. Next slide. So this is our current makeup of our agency and how it exists. I have two commanders. I do not have an undersheriff. I opted to try to flatten out the management of the sheriff's office, and we currently have Commander Ross, who oversees all of our law enforcement operations, and then of course Steve Saltemeyer, who really has the harder job, to be quite honest with you. He is the commander of our corrections and our courts and parts of the campus security issues. Then I have three captains. One captain, which of course is in corrections, with two lieutenants, and then a various sundry squad of corrections deputies and support personnel. Ronell Nelson, who is getting ready to retire in May, has been here for, I think it's just a little over 40 years, and she oversees all of our civil operations and all of our records and PDRs and all those type of things, and deals with the courts. If the courts come out and seize your house, she's the one that stands on the courtroom steps and sells your house to the highest bidder, those type of issues. So, and that's what her responsibilities are. We are currently, let's see, we are 5, 10, 15, 20, about 28 deputies, and from the sheriff on down, about 28 law enforcement officers that are fully commissioned that work throughout the county. And the next slide. This is our mission and our vision. I won't read them verbatim for you. We established this new set of mission and our core values in 2015 and 2016. This is what we live by and how we conduct business on a daily basis. We believe in 100% being community partners with the people that we serve and working for them. And we live that and try to accomplish that every day. Next slide. Okay, so our uniform patrols, I spoke briefly on that. We have 4 squads that work 12-hour shifts. Each squad has a sergeant and currently has 3 deputies assigned to each squad. So at any given time, if you factor out the sick, lame, and lazy, or training, or all the other things that come on with holding a full-time job, we would have a sergeant and 3 deputies patrolling about 1,300 square miles of the county at any given time. But the reality is we have usually we struggle to keep 2 deputies working on the road with all the various variables that occur. And they're tasked with the everyday responsibility of patrolling our counties and responding to reported crimes. And currently we have a sergeant and 3 detectives that support these patrolmen, these deputies, in what they do out in the field. Let's see, you already have some of those things I did. Thank you. Next slide. So here's some of the things we do: traffic enforcement, security checks, calls for service, and of course we discussed the civil duties that are occurring that we do on a daily basis. What we've seen over the past 4 years is just a steady increase for calls for service. Anywhere from a reported crime to an accident. They've been calls for service have been jumping about 1,000 calls a year over the past 4 years. So next slide. We discussed what our civil division and records division does upstairs. That same makeup also sits downstairs in our corrections field with civil clerks that do the work for the jail too. The young lady down here on the left is also retiring here in the next couple months. She is responsible for doing all of our criminal history runs and work, our weapons permits, anything that's got to do where you're accessing criminal databases for processing. So she's going to leave us with a big void here in the next, end of March. And so we're going to have to search to replace her. The lady here in the middle, she is our sex offender tracker. So all the sex offenders in the county, they get to come to the front window and report to her on a monthly basis in some form or fashion, and then the patrol deputies and other people help her do all those verifications, along with the city of Pasco, who will help with their law enforcement. The other lady on the far right is our PDR, what we refer to as our PDR clerk and records clerk. She does all the reports and PDR requests and stuff for the agency. Next slide. Next slide. Some of our ancillary things we do is we actually do river patrols. We patrol the rivers and respond to search and rescue missions. We usually start that in early spring, and then we're just available. Our boats will sit on the water for emergency calls. Usually by about October 1st, we'll take them off the water. We do boaters education, vessel inspections, and basically the law enforcement work on the 3 rivers here right in and around the Tri-Cities. We also do juniper patrol, what we refer to as juniper patrol dunes, which is ORV patrols. As you know, we have a Bureau of Land Management out here off the Clotis Highway that has a big natural dunes area that a lot of people travel in and out of the county from, and we provide the law enforcement coverage for the dunes. Okay, next slide. Oh, let's see, marijuana eradication. With the legalization of marijuana, it really didn't slow up for us. What we've seen is an increase in illegal marijuana production in particular in our northern counties and our farmers' fields. This picture here was, there was about, if I recall correctly, 150,000 plants in this row. And where you see these linear lines, that's actually full mature marijuana. And there, it was so big this year when we were doing this that we actually, the farmer lent us his squeeze chute and his tractor, so we'd go in and stack and pile it and squeeze it and bring it out to be destroyed. Next picture. This is a picture of the guys who were doing the work cutting down the marijuana. This particular grow was in a 360 acre area in North Franklin County, which had about 70,000 plants in it when we processed it. This is a mixture of our personnel here at the Sheriff's Office and then the Washington State Patrol eradication team that comes in and helps us when we seize all this. There's very little prosecution that takes place with these illegal grows because they're usually tended by Mexican nationals, and you never really get to who it is that actually owns these grows. So most of it is just harvest work and destroying and taking the illicit drug off the market. Next slide. And feel free at any time to ask questions here. When I first was elected, we sit down with the town of Mesa and we partnered with them and we created a satellite office up in Mesa, which is a complete remodel there off of their city hall, where we assign a deputy or two that actually works out of that office and responds out of the office. This is one of the community events that we held when we first opened the office to promote it. That's currently active today. We run our briefings out of this office off and on, depending on the day and the circumstances, but we utilize this office quite a lot up in Mesa, and we're glad to be able to partner with the town of Mesa. Next slide. We do have a reserve program. One of the commissioners spoke earlier about one of our reserves who was actually here for 33 years is finally calling it quits and has decided to tour the country with his wife. He had probably donated over well north of 25,000 hours over the years of free time conducting patrols in North Franklin County. Our reserve program will be about 6 reserve deputies when he retires. It's a small program, but they're very active and come out and assist the deputies on a regular basis. Next slide. Oh, Franklin County Explorers, the Sheriff's Post. We have a foundation, and the foundation, this is one of the things that they support is our Explorer program, where we reach out and work with a lot of the North County youth to come in, and it's like a scouting program where they work with the deputies, ride with the deputies. We do training with them, and they help us with parades and all those type of things, National Night Out and those type of things. So we have a good, strong youth Explorer program in the Sheriff's Office. Next slide. We partner well with our area agencies, Pasco, Kennewick, Richland, West Richland, and Benton County. We're on the regional SWAT teams. We work with the Tri-City Metro Task Force. We have a drone program that we'll talk about a little bit more in depth, and they so we have good, strong partnerships with all our regional law enforcement agencies. Next slide. We are well partnered with our North County School District. So we do the DARE program. We do every 15 minutes. And we actually on a routine basis are out in with our, most of the time with our grade school kids at the schools and trying to keep in contact with them and partner with them. So these are some of the things that we do. Next slide. This is just things we do in the community as examples. Next slide. So I spoke briefly about the foundation. The foundation was formed in 2016, and one of the first projects that they took on was raised money, and we put AEDs, which are the electronic defibrillator devices, into every one of our patrol cars and marked cars in the county and in our jail. All modern, state-of-the-art AEDs that we have, and they maintain those for us so that we have access to them all the time, and that's one of the fundraisers they do for us. They also were instrumental with our drone program. The Sheriff's Office currently has 2 full-size drones that are equipped with cameras, infrared. They're flown basically by computer when we use them for searching. For example, the other night we launched the drones with the infrared, with hot infrared for the city when they were chasing a suspect. And basically, when you have them up and do that, you can actually see the people laying on the ground and their warm body kicking off, for example, when they're hiding. We use our drones, both of them, on a routine basis. It's not uncommon for us to fly them a couple times a week for our own operations and for other law enforcement agency operations. Then we also have the Community Care Fund, where we can reach out. Most of the deputies have a credit card that they have in their pocket from the foundation, so that when the need arises to reach out and help people in the community, they have the ability to do that. So that's our foundation. In a nutshell, they're really busy. They haven't been able to do a whole lot of fundraising this year because of Corona and those type of issues, but they're active in the community, and literally the foundation is a bunch of farmers and businessmen that are helping us out and doing that. Next page. Well, that's kind of blurry. This is our statistical data for this year that we just have finished and completed. Just outlines for you where we're at. We've had 1 criminal homicide this year, which was frankly a dope-related homicide that we have everybody in custody on. The year before, I believe we had 1 homicide too. Just breaks down our Part 1 crimes for you as they occur, and you can see that overall we've had about a 20% increase, it looks like, in our Part 1 crimes. Part 2 crimes are your misdemeanor crimes, most of them. Some of them are Class C felonies. And we actually saw some decreases in that, which surprises me considering how cooped up we've been this year with the whole COVID thing, because usually you'll see, domestics and DUIs and all those type of things increase when we kind of box people in and don't let them move around too much. It's the sex offender notifications there. Again, we partner with the city of Pasco because the vast majority of the sex offenders are in the city of Pasco, but it's the sheriff's responsibility to keep track of them. And so these break down your sex offenders from, the lowest level to the highest level, and how many we have in the county at any given time. Let's see what else is there that's of interest. Take a look at the concealed pistol license requests from 2019 to 2020. You're going to see quite a bit of a jump there. So more and more people are getting concealed weapons permits as the year carried on last year and into this year. I think we're processing well over 300 permits this month alone coming up. So Next page.
Real quick, Jim, this is Colin. I had a question on the liquor laws. It's what does that entail? And I see that you had 17 and 19 and then 11. Is that,
Yeah, like
underage drinking or?
Yeah, underage drinking or open containers or where, those type of things. Not liquor laws like, the Liquor Control Board is currently trying to enforce. These are just, minors in possession and those type of things. Okay. Colin asked me to speak a little bit on the defund the police movement and those issues. We have not experienced that very much here at a local level, even though you'll see some of it in protests and some of the stuff that's going on over at the state capitol now. Our commissioners have been fully supportive of the sheriff's office, and we have not experienced any of those type of hits at all. We, as the sheriff's office, of course, we've assisted the other law enforcement agencies in the Tri-Cities with all the protests that have occurred in the past 12 months or so. We've assisted Pasco several times, and Pasco's also assisted us when we had a couple issues that occurred here on the campus. But overall, we actually get to enjoy a pretty good respect from our community and the people that support us. So, any questions on that, or as far as the defund movement goes? It is a huge thing right now, the whole defunding and law enforcement. What it basically sums up to is if you defund law enforcement, what you're doing is defunding police officers in the field, because that's really what law enforcement agencies are made up of, is FTEs, full-time equivalent people. And so if you take any major cuts out of your law enforcement agencies, it's going to be in police officers not working in the field. So next page. COVID response. Of course, in law enforcement, you don't get to stay home. We continued responding to calls for service, and honestly, we continued to expose ourselves to some of the COVID issues, just simply from things like 2 deputies, wrestling with a guy at a DUI accident scene, and we get him to jail, and he tests positive for COVID, and then we have to take those 2 deputies out of play, get them tested. In that instance, one of them has tested positive and is out right now, while the other one didn't. And so we take precautions with the one deputy that didn't, so he can come back to work. I think overall, we've had probably 20 exposures and maybe 4 deputies on the road that contracted COVID. And some of those were actually where they're exposed by family members or those type of things. So the sheriff's office does not enforce COVID regulations. There is no criminal laws about COVID regulation. There's a misdemeanor, and perhaps Sean can explain that better for you. It says it's a misdemeanor not to follow the governor's emergency directive, but there is no laws reference to COVID regulations. So we just try to manage the complaints, and generally what we do is if we get a complaint from somebody that, say, Rocky hadn't worn his mask in a store up north, we'll just forward that to the prosecutor and we move on. So, and we don't enforce the governor's directives. The sheriff's office doesn't. So, while we're on that topic, so that everybody has an understanding, as the sheriff, I get to practice what they call discretion. I'm not mandated to make arrests except for a few domestic violence type of laws when they're violated, DUI arrests, those type of things. So usually how we're handling those type of things is we're using discretion. And if there's anything that needs a legal opinion or a decision made, they're just forwarded to the prosecutor. And we have not had very many of those in the field. So I'll pause for a minute if anybody has any questions about that. I know that I've been on the hot seat off and on throughout the year over this issue, but that's how we chose to approach it as a sheriff's office. All right, next page. So our corrections division, when I was elected and took office in 2015, I was immediately sued for federal civil rights violations and was placed under a federal decree. The Franklin County Corrections Facility is about a 300-bed facility. It operates 24/7, 365 days a year. Where we're at today through that process is we have went through and completely revamped our policies and our procedures and our practices in order to meet the decree. The commissioners cut loose with money the best they could to bring the facility up to standards. And I think that we finally got there. We come off the decree here this year, and we just finished up the last stretches of some of the upgrades and stuff that we need to do in the correctional facility. And we have went through our first dry run for accreditation in our corrections facility, and we've passed it. So here in early spring, we're actually going to take the test for real, and the hopes is that we will be accredited by the end of May, and which will really, well, it's an insurance policy to be accredited to say that you're going to follow the practices and policies of the National Institute of Corrections and the WASPIC accreditation standards. And Brad, Bob, if you would like to add anything to that, please feel free. It was a long process and it took a lot, but I believe we're going to get there, and I believe we've become a very professional corrections facility.
This is
Hey,
Brad
Sheriff.
Peck. I'll just add quickly that there's an old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And with respect to the sheriff's office, I don't know that the commissioners realized all the challenges that were there. And I think Sheriff Raymond and his team deserve a huge amount of credit for the progress they've made in a short time. Obviously, it couldn't be done without taxpayer support. But things have come an awful long way in a short time. And speaking for myself, I'm grateful for all their work.
And this is Sean Sant. I just wanted to add, I think one of the key things, and Sheriff didn't touch on it, but one of the key success stories from this litigation that was filed back in 2015, really for actions that had taken place before the sheriff took office. But it was because of all the work that the sheriff and his team, specifically Commander Soltemeyer, the processes that they were putting in place really made the other side come to the table and recognize through mediation to resolve this suit rather than any additional financial harms to the county. So that was a huge benefit. And again, I wish we would have had a little bit more time prior to them deciding to file suit, because really the sheriff was implementing all of the appropriate recommendation changes that were part of that mediation. So that was a good effort by his team, and they've done a good job managing probably the most litigious arm of any county, which is the jail. So thank you.
So our corrections is made up of about 48 deputies. There hopefully, if we take over and start running the security section, that's where you get cleared to come into the campus. We'll add an additional 2 deputies about mid-year. And so it's, we work on a slim margin, but we've become pretty efficient with the jail right now. And we don't see any major issues addressing this in the near future coming at us. So the next slide, and I'll try to shorten it up here. I can see people are needing to get out of here. A little bit, they talked about Commander Soltemeyer. They call him Salty Dog in the Department of Corrections. He was introduced to me by a fellow law enforcement officer as someone that could come in and help us line up the corrections facility, and he certainly has done so. He's just done a tremendous job, and he's he's going to stay here so long as I'm the sheriff, and then after that, I don't know what his plans are. So that's kind of the jail in a nutshell. COVID for the jail was actually it was pretty easy to implement processes, because part of the lawsuit required us to put in a staff of medical and mental health workers in the jail, so that when people came into the jail, they could be evaluated whether they had mental deficiencies or whether they were, through withdrawals or all those type of things. We have about I can't remember the exact number. We're somewhere about $1.5 million a year just for medical and mental health in our corrections field. So when anybody comes into the jail, they're basically scanned for any type of COVID issues or mental health issues or medical issues, and then they're triaged from there. Today, what happens is, as you come into jail, you're actually put into a holding area before you're processed into booking for about 14 days. And so we move the inmates, on days, just doing the monitoring for the COVID and those type of things. We have not had very big COVID issues in the jail amongst our inmates. Now, our employees are a different story. I think probably total we've had 18 deputies or command staff personnel that have caught in COVID and had to be out of the workplace and, go through those type of processes. But internally, I want to say the highest we ever got was having 6 inmates that we are monitoring, and 2 of them actually having COVID. And usually what happens is they're released out of the system before, if they come into the system and they have COVID, then they're generally released. We work with the prosecutor's office and the courts to release them. We have a 300-bed facility now. We currently run about 150 because of the COVID issues and those type of things. But the plan is once all this is gone, we'll probably contract bed space out to occupy the vast majority of that bed space through the Department of Corrections, because it offsets the cost to the county and to the taxpayers if we do that and run those type of contracts with DOC. Movement of inmates has been pretty limited in the past 6 months. So we have established protocols, procedures, and evaluations in place, and classification and temporary movement. So the next page, please. Yeah, video arraignments. I put these 2 pictures in because this is actually an interesting story. Our captain in the jail decided to do a rehabilitation classroom in the jail. And his first 2 students, where he got them their GEDs and work permits and all those type of things, those guys, they were graffiti artists is what they were. That's one of their favorite things they did. But these are inmates that actually painted these pictures in our fresh air yards in the jail. And they did all that by hand, which was just amazing. So our visitations are done on the weekends, and most of our visitation nowadays, even before COVID, is via video. So there's not a lot of face-to-face visitations that take place anymore. Okay, next page.
So Jim, I have that one slide that we didn't get in. Let me dial it up here. Give me a moment. Did you want to touch base?
This is just another way of it's called NIBRS, National Incident Based Reporting. So this is another way we report what occurs criminal-wise in the county, and these are the numbers that actually go to the FBI for counting purposes and those type of things. And so this just shows you just a different look at what I showed you in the previous screen to these of our criminal actions that take place in the county. These are, before you get to your questions, of course, we have changed patches. This is our patch nowadays that everybody wears on their uniforms. These are our accreditation plaques for the sheriff's office that sit at the front window announce to everybody who we are and what we're about, along with our mission, visions, and values. So, hopefully, I'm proud of the men and women of the sheriff's office. I believe in the past 6 years that we have jumped light years ahead, that we are rapidly becoming a very professional, respected agency. And that's kind of the intent as we move forward over the next couple of years, and depending on what happens in the next election cycle for me. We're just going to keep progressing forward with our professionalism and continue improving in our policies and practices. So. Any questions? Or I will make sure that when we finish our year-end report, Colin, I'll make sure that we actually get it, a copy of it to you, a complete copy of it, so you have it, so you can share it.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. We'd be happy to share that with through our communications channels too.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, do we have any questions for the sheriff? I do know Sheriff Dave Zabel mentioned in the chat, City Manager Dave Zabel mentioned, he said, great overview, really illustrates some of the law enforcement issues found in rural areas that we don't see here in the city.
I never got to work for Dave Zabel, but I hear he's a great city manager. So.
I hear similar things. Also, Colin, and for the rest of everybody on the, Colin did put a link to the Senate Bill 5114 testimony link in the chat. Those of you that haven't done it, Colin, I think you had a question or two for the sheriff.
Yeah, and please, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in as well too. I didn't see anything on a K9 unit. Does the sheriff have K9 units? And if you do need that, you just work with the city of Pasco if indeed you don't have K9?
So no, we don't have K9s. And from my perspective, we'd spend a lot of time trying to keep those K9s up and running. And I believe the city of Pasco actually has 6 now. So whenever we need K9 help, we call upon the city of Pasco to come help us. And if they're not available, one of the other law enforcement agencies. I have no intention at this point to bring on K9s. I just think they're better utilized in our cities versus in the counties. And I'd rather spend time on expanding our drone programs because they're a lot more useful for us right now. So. Hi, Jolene Johnson.
She must be being a little coy. One other thing that I know that we were starting to get a little involved in with the Pasco Chamber, and I don't remember the deputy's name. Her name escapes me, but I know that she was trying to put together a community event up in Basin City, I believe, in September. Obviously, COVID stopped that from happening, but for the last 3 years or so, she's been able to engage quite a bit there. And one of the things that she was looking for help with is some business involvement and sponsorships and prizes as well too. And we look.
You're talking about Ramona Bolanos.
Yeah, she's got a lot of energy. She's great.
Yes, that's one of the programs, if you will, is we started doing National Night Out up in Basin City, and it actually becomes just a community event. At its peak, there's probably 300-400 kids and family members there and stuff, and it was actually huge. And so each year we've gotten a little bigger with it, and we were hopefully going to make it a really nice event this year, but the whole COVID thing just required us to say, well, we're just going to have to take a pass this year. That too was primarily sponsored, by the foundation that would raise the the money for that. And it's quite interesting because Ramona would just run around the county and be, yeah, we're going to do nice national night out here and there. And, you'd have farmers going, well, here's $500, and you're trying to keep all that straight. And it turns out to be a really big community event. And we do plan on going back to that this year. Usually you see those national nights outs we're big in the cities. Rarely are they done in the county, but we will continue to do it because it was quite successful.
Yeah, and I know if there's any of the businesses that are out there that may have some interest in participating with that, I can get you connected with Deputy Bolanos, and I think it's just a good opportunity to help out with that. So, sound like I was stepping on somebody. Did somebody else have a question?
All right.
Fantastic. Well, if no other questions, we'll move on in our program, which there's a lot left. Just kidding. Basically, next, all we're going to do now is just kind of announce in February, our meeting will be on February 8th. It will be on this same Zoom channel. So keep your keep this channel dial open. And Colin, do you have anything else to add for the good of the order?
Don't. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, okay. I thought I was muted. Sorry about that. No, I don't. It just
takes a second for the sound to get through the beard.
Yeah, my dad wants me to do something with the chamber and get rid of this beard. So we'll have to discuss that at our next board meeting in terms of what we can do with my beard and how to get rid of this. Because I jokingly said that this was occurring because of until we get to phase 4, and well, the governor changed the phases now, so I don't even know if what the projection looks like. So maybe it's time to get rid of it. My dad's starting to get cranky, I think, with it too. So with that, yeah, thanks, Jason. And it looks like unless there's anything more in the chat, that maybe we. Okay, yeah, an epic way to get rid of it. Auction to shave it off. See, these are the ideas that start with $10. Okay, see, this is good. So maybe we'll have something to roll out for our February 8th meeting, and maybe you'll see a transformation before your computer at the next meeting. We'll see.
I've got 100 if you let your dad take the first whack. But anyway, well, thanks everybody for joining. Maybe next time we'll have a shearing event at our next meeting. I don't know. Apparently we're talking about it. But thanks again for Sheriff Raymond for giving us an update on what's going on with the Sheriff's Department. You guys, from all accounts, you guys are doing a fantastic job over there. Keep up the good work. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thanks. Have a good one.